Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Super Game Brothers weekly podcast about board games and video games. My name is David, and I am your host, and I'm usually joined by my brother, Devin. It's Devin's birthday this week. He was out of town, but I didn't want to miss an episode since there were some things that I thought would be worth at least recording something about. So it's just me today. So this is the Super Game Brother podcast, I guess, today. So you just get to listen to my sultry voice. And I do think this episode will be a bit shorter because of that. I don't have another person to throw the conversation to. Don't have all of Devin's fun quips or anything. So yeah, I apologize about that in advance of the rest of the episode. But I do appreciate you being here and listening regardless. This episode's a little bit later than normal. We had a crazy week, but yeah, it's going to be good. Going to be good. Not much new for me in the life front. We had elementary school start this week. So second grader and kindergartner going back to school. It's been a little bit hectic and crazy, and then just swamped at work. So yeah, just a lot going on. And then some unforeseen things that kind of pushed our normal schedule from Wednesday, and Wednesday was also Devin's birthday, so a little later on the recording than usual. But yeah, this is a weekly podcast I do with my brother. We talk about board games and video games since we really love them. I have over 350 board games on a shelf behind me. You can't see them as well today because I've got my video much smaller so that I can share my screen. Usually I show a lot more of my screen, and Devin runs the PC screen capture. But I love board games, especially heavier Euro style games that are more like a math efficiency puzzle as opposed to I'm rolling dice in your face. But I like a variety as well. Got some very short and simple games too, so really love board games. And then I also love video games. I've been playing for my whole life. I basically play on PlayStation and PC and Switch kind of exclusively. Say exclusively, but then I just said 3 of the most major platforms in the world. And yeah, I play a little bit of everything. Really love puzzle games. And I mean, there isn't a genre that I really hate, to be honest. So play a lot of everything. So we play a lot of games. We talk about them every single week. So thanks again for joining me and being here. Today, we're not going to have really an opening segment. We're just going to jump right in. Before we jump in, though, I do want to just give you a quick reminder. Check us out on Patreon, patreon.com/SuperGameBrothers. Got it up on the screen here. This is how you can support the show. It helps us to keep the lights on. We put exclusive episodes up. I'll talk about this one later in the show. I did a playthrough of Slay the Spire. And yeah, we put all of our podcast episodes up here as well. You can get them 3 days early, get your name in the credits, all kinds of perks over on Patreon. So that is patreon.com/SuperGameBrothers. If you wouldn't mind checking us out there, that would be very helpful. You can even just follow the Patreon totally for free, which would be helpful too. It helps us kind of get pushed out more to new people on Patreon. So check that out. And then we have the Super Game Brothers YouTube channel for our video game stuff. That's where I post this podcast. And we also, or I mainly, manage the gaming top-down YouTube channel all about board games. So we've got a lot of different things to check out, as well as social media accounts for those too. So check out all the things. Helps us out a ton and helps us to continue to do this. All right, without any more ado, I guess we're going to jump right in to the News Mini Nuke. In the News Mini Nuke, basically just go over quick items from the week, video game and board game announcements, new trailers, what new games are on subscription services for the week or month, and if any new notable games came out this last week. So first up, I think the most exciting thing for me is Leader Games. They make Root and Arcs, which is just coming out kind of imminently. Root came out a few years ago, probably 4 or 5 years, I would think, and it has 2 or 3, I think it has 3 major expansions that each include 2 new factions that you can play in the game. So with the 4 that were in the base game, and then those 3 expansions, I think there's a total of 10. They just announced a new expansion is going to be on Kickstarter later this year in October. And all they've shown at this point is this image. And this image shows what I assume will be the 2 factions. One of them is a frog-like looking creature. I think it is a frog. I don't know why I said frog-like. It's a frog. And the frog is holding kind of that thing that, like a stick with a bundle of, like a little satchel on the end that they would show in old TV shows or movies when someone was, I don't know, running away from home with some stuff in it. So he looks pretty snazzy. He's got a scarf on. I like the way that faction looks, at least visually, from this first representation here. And then the other one is a bat. Little bummed Devin's not on this episode today because bats are one of his very favorite animals. And this bat character, again, looks very cool. Kind of reminds me of the bat at the beginning of, what's that Disney movie called that's kind of ripping off Sherlock Holmes? Great Mouse Detective, I think. I like the bat in that that show. Kind of reminds me of my childhood. But anyways, really like the 2 kind of animal factions that they're showing here. Obviously, we have no idea how they play or anything yet. I think Leader Games is doing a stream this Sunday with a really great YouTuber called the Cardboard Herald to chat about the expansion. So if you want to check that out, I believe that is this Sunday, which will be the 18th, I think, of August. Probably after you're hearing this, but hopefully it's stored on YouTube. I imagine it is. So very excited about that. Root is one of my very favorite games. I don't get to play it as much as I would like to, but I have all 3 of those major expansions with the new factions, and this one just visually at least looks very, very cool with the frog and bat characters. I think in the base game you've got the Eerie Dynasty, or like these blue birds. I can't remember what type of bird. Anyways, then there's the Marquita cat. They are cats. And you've got the Woodland Alliance. What animal is that? Like foxes? Oh, I can't. It's been a minute since I played. I can't remember all of them. And then the what's the name of that character that can? There's one character that kind of sneaks through all of the spaces between the cities in the forest. And I'm spacing on what his name is, but he's kind of a raccoon character, I believe. And then in one of the expansions adds in an otter faction that likes to sail down the river and sell stuff to the other factions. And that one also has the lizard cult as well, which are kind of a funny religious cult based on lizards. Then they had the underground expansion, which I think has moles that can kind of dig through the map. And I think it's crows or something was the other one. And if I remember correctly, they kind of put like sabotage on the board. And then the latest one, I actually haven't played with either of the characters yet, even though I have it. It's the Marauder set, I believe. And I don't even remember the names of the factions, but one of them is kind of based on violence and fighting as well. And I think they're like big mice. And what was the other one? I'm sure you can Google it to see. But anyways, I think that these 2 new factions, at least aesthetically, look like really cool additions. So it'll be cool to see how they play, since that is Root's kind of big thing, is that every faction in the game plays very, very differently, all in that goal to get to 30 victory points. So Root is excellent. Very excited about that one. I think you can follow the Kickstarter campaign as well if you want to be like notified when it goes live. So very excited about that. Next up, from Board Game Geek, we've got a lot of bits of news that have popped up out of Gen Con, which just ended. I'm not going to go over everything, but Eric Martin over there, who is I think one of the big wigs at BGG or something, he has a blog over there where he notes all of the new announcements and game tidbits, which is exciting to see. as someone who is very well connected, like he is. And he published some findings and some things that he learned kind of at Gen Con. First up, there is going to be a new edition of a pretty famous game called Tikal. It was designed by Michael Kiesling and Wolfgang Kramer. Their combination is kind of a pretty famous designers that work together pretty often. And I think the game has come out like 10 or 15 years ago at this point, but they're going to be running a new crowdfunding campaign for a new version of the game. And let's see, it says here, Tikal Legend is a game of exploration, placement, and majority in which the players explore the Central American jungles and search for lost temples and treasures. As in the award-winning Tikal, your ultimate goal is to score the most prestige points during the in-game scoring phases, but the toolbox to do so in Tikal Legend becomes way wider. In addition to exploring the jungle, controlling temples, and collecting treasures, you get to pick and perform actions in the order of your choosing, and spending your action points is only one of the available options. Claim different terrains, benefit from card effects, manipulate the map, recruit additional expedition members, and do so much more, all to excavate a whole new level of tactical and strategic planning in Tikal Legend. Anyways, I know that is, like I said, a pretty well-loved game. So if you've played that or been looking for, a new version, I guess, then hooray, this is here for you. I'll definitely be checking it out when it hits crowdfunding in October. We talked about Dune Imperium Bloodlines last week, but that is a upcoming expansion for Dune Imperium and Dune Imperium Uprising. Some other little tidbits that came out of this section of the release news here is that Ark Nova is getting a new map pack that has 4 new maps that are double-sided. On one side, they're all the same, so that you can play with a new map that everybody has the same starting point. And on the other side are 4 different maps for each player. I have this game and have yet to play it physically. I've played it on Board Game Arena a couple of times, and it's really fun. I wonder how long it will take physically, though, with dealing with the cards and moving all the pieces, and Board Game Arena not doing all of the administration and math for me. So I do want to try that one out a bit more. Let's see. There's also from Renegade Game Studios, they're releasing 2 Robo Rally expansions. Robo Rally Turn and Burn, which is a re-implementation of 1997's Robo Rally Grand Prix, 5 new upgrade cards and 3 double-sided game boards. And Robo Rally Contamination, which is a re-implementation of 1998's Robo Rally Radioactive, which also has 5 new upgrade cards of its own, along with 3 double-sided game boards featuring new elements like radiation, radioactive waste, and one-way walls. Yeah, a lot more kind of smaller news items here. I thought this one looked pretty interesting from Rio Grande Games. Comes out in the same time frame. So what is that? In late this year or early next year, this game called Moon Colony Bloodbath comes out. It's for 1 to 5 players from Donald Vaccarino. And the blurb here is, cities on the moon. This will be humanity's crowning achievement. At last, no longer bound to the Earth, the moon a stepping stone to the stars. The rockets are loaded with supplies and colonists. The robots are programmed and ready. Everything has been planned down to the tiniest detail, and there is no chance whatsoever of failure. To the moon. Moon Colony Bloodbath is an engine-building, engine-losing tableau game with a shared deck the players build that makes things happen. Many of them bad things that kill people in your moon colony, but some positive and some let you build up. More specifically, each turn 1 card is revealed from the shared deck, which starts with 4 work cards, 2 trouble cards, and 2 twists. For work, each player takes an action of their choice simultaneously. Mining for money, farming for food, research for cards, building a new building, or restock boxes on buildings. Twists vary from one game to the next. Trouble adds a new event card to the deck. Hunger, paperwork, glitches, accidents, leaks, power failure, whatever can go wrong will go wrong. Then whenever the deck is shuffled, you can prepare for all of those events once again. Players can add cards to the shared deck too, whether perks that are only for you or developments that affect all players. The game lasts until one player's moon colony has no people remaining, or until the players reach the bottom of the event deck. At that point, the player with the most survivors wins. So it's just kind of like I don't know what you would call that, who can last the longest with all these bad things happen, which I thought kind of sounded funny. Kind of has this Fallout vibe on the moon with older style art, and kind of robots made out of, that's like a mixer that has been turned into a moon robot. So anyway, some fun games coming out there. This new one from Disney and Maestro Media is another game by Wolfgang Kramer, this time with Daryl Andrews. Again, two really solid designers. And this game is called Donald Duck in Happy Camper. Comes out in December 2024. It's for 2 to 4 players. In the game, players race to explore the wilderness, set up camp, take scenic photos, and earn badges. Starting with an empty board, players reveal tiles and gather resources on their turn, but the more you have in your bag, the slower you go. Will you race to the best photo spot or set up tents in different terrains? There are bigger bonuses for being the first to complete a task, so plan carefully as you race to become the best happy camper. I really like DuckTales, so I like the visual vibe, at least, that it has. Hopefully it can be a solid game too, but they do have some good designers working on that. This one was kind of interesting, I thought. It's called Shaolin, a Wu-Tang inspired board game. And it's for 2 to 4 players, and the blurb here: enter the Shaolin Temple and be the first to create the 36th chamber in this Wu-Tang inspired adventure. In Shaolin, each player is a new student ready to train at the Shaolin Temple, earning cream, a tangible currency symbolizing respect and skill, by correctly answering Wu-Tang Clan trivia questions. Cream enables a player to master up to 5 fighting styles, which can be won or lost in one-on-one duels between players. Once a player has mastered enough fighting styles, they must face off with one of the temple's 5 masters. If victorious, the player must face the abbot's final challenge to determine whether they are worthy of creating the 36th chamber to win the game. Since it's based on trivia from the Wu-Tang Clan, I would definitely not be good at this game. But, you know, if that's a thing that you enjoy, might be a fun one for you. Okay, just a couple more that I thought were noteworthy. This game from Phil Walker Harding is called Misfit Heroes. And it looks like they're going to be showing it again at Spiel coming up in a month or 2. And the blurb here: after a bizarre interdimensional event of massive proportions, Earth as we know it has been forever altered when a fantastic realm merged with ours. The result is a land called Absurdia, where magical beasts live among ordinary people and vice versa. There's no going back to the way things were in this place of improbable combinations, from monster accountants to cosmic wedding planners. In Misfit Heroes, players are organizing crews in hopes of claiming influence to win over the hearts and minds of the citizens in nearby regions. The character cards players will use are different every time you play. Before a game, the cards you will use are created by placing each character transparency together with an attribute card in a card sleeve. You'll never know which new characters are in the deck, and the combinations are almost endless. During play, each character card gives a player special actions such as earning money, drawing more cards, and most importantly, gaining influence in the mountain, forest, sea, and city regions of the kingdom. When a player has collected 6 influence, they may claim a region of the corresponding type, which scores them points. The player who best uses their characters in combination and gains the most points wins. That's a cool gameplay mechanism where multiple cards with transparent sections are slotted together in a card sleeve. It doesn't get used very often, in my opinion. I can only think of a couple games that do it. I think there's that pirate one that I can't remember the name of right now. Forgotten Waters, maybe, or that might be it. And then Canvas is another one. So I think that's cool. Hopefully it doesn't require a lot of setup where I have to like shuffle all of these decks separately and then put one of 3 different kinds of cards in a sleeve and do that 60 times to create this kind of bigger deck. But even if it does, that's kind of a cool idea anyways. Let's see, another one here, Quartermaster General South Front. It was crowdfunded a while ago, but it looks like it is finally moving to production later this year. I think this quarter, actually, so hopefully it will come out soon. And I think that was maybe all of the noteworthy ones. Oh, well, there's this one too. Railroad Tiles, which kind of seems like a, I don't know, a game in the same kind of genre as Railroad Inc., which was a roll and write where you're making these train track routes after a die is rolled, and you have to draw kind of like Pipe Dream with like curves and straight railroad tracks. This one is similar, except it's not a roll and write. You're taking these little square cardboard tokens and using them in place of that. So I think that's cool. I really like Horrible Guild and Hjalmar Huck. I don't know how to pronounce that. Huck and Lorenzo Silva. They make really excellent games. I think they work like exclusively for Horrible Guild. Maybe they founded it or something, but yeah, excited about that one and to see how different it is from some of the other games I've been doing. Really like Horrible Guild. Anyways, lots of stuff from Gen Con. It's still kind of being unpacked, and I'm trying to figure out what was shown and announced, and yeah, hard, a little tricky to figure all of that stuff out, but lots of good stuff there. And a few video game trailers and announcements. First up is one I'm very excited for. A game came out a few years ago called Lonely Mountain Downhill, I think is what it was called. And this is kind of a sequel to that game. This is called Lonely Mountains Riders. And in that first game, you're trying to get down a mountain as fast as you can on a mountain bike. And the you kind of hit checkpoints along the way, but it's all about like speed, but you have to be a little flexible in like the route you take. Like, whoops, I accidentally cut this corner. I didn't mean to. Can I save my run, or am I going to crash into a tree? It's a really, really fun game, to be honest, kind of leaderboard based, because it is, there's no co-op or multiplayer. This one is about skiing instead of mountain biking. And it does have multiplayer. You can race against other people, or it does sound like there's a cooperative mode, at least in some fashion, because it says gather your friends and conquer the mountains together. But yeah, very cool looking. I like the kind of minimalist art that these games have, and it actually comes out this year. Only mentioned on Steam now at this point, but maybe it will come to other platforms later on. So really cool indie game. I hope that one's as good as the mountain biking version, because yeah, that one was really great. This next one is kind of a PlayStation 1 game, if I'm understanding correctly. That is an adventure game called Broken Sword: Shadow of the Templars. This is Reforged. And yeah, I've never played one of these, but adventure games are, I feel like I just kind of missed the frame for them. I didn't have like a gaming PC when a lot of these games were getting big, even like Secrets of Monkey Island and Day of the Tentacle. Like, I just missed those. But I don't know, a remade version of it, if it makes it just a little bit more modern in how it plays. The art looks really very unique here. So kind of a cool idea, but I don't know if this one will be for me. It launches on September 19th on PlayStation 5, and this trailer was kind of to commemorate that and to show some of the upgrades that they've made. So if you've played that one in the past, or like these kind of old school adventure games, then it'd probably be one for you. All right, next up is a very indie looking platformer game called Mainframes, where you play as kind of this like floppy disk, and the floppy disk has to get from one side of like a desktop screen to the other, but you can manipulate different things on the screen, like the size of different windows, and linking things together. And for example, he's jumping on different icons like on a desktop that say bump on them, and they kind of give him like a trampoline bounce, or one says like Link as like a key. Very kind of clever idea here. I hope it ends up being cool. It's only been announced for PC and Switch at this point for early 2025, but I really like the visual style. Small indie games like this are kind of my jam, so hopefully it ends up being a good one, but it looks really cool. That is Main Frames. And then last up is a new trailer for a game that I think was announced quite a while ago, but it's called Mouse P or Higher, and very much like a Doom clone. It's a first-person shooter. If you mixed like Doom, took the most of the violence, and put Cuphead's like artwork in Doom, then that's kind of what this is. You play as kind of like a Mickey Mouse looking character, and you just kind of have to, I don't know if you're solving crimes kind of as well, but it looks like you're mainly first person shooting here, and most of the characters look like Steamboat Willie that you're fighting against in black and white fashion, but very cool animation style at least. So hopefully that one will have the gameplay chops to stand up to the cool visual aesthetic, because it's definitely unique in that way. Okay, that was all of the new trailers and announcements for the week in the news mini nuke, excuse me. So we're going to go into the video games that are going to be free to subscriptions this week. And the biggest section here is that PlayStation has announced the games coming to Extra and Premium for the month of August, and there's quite a few of them, so we're going to go through those. First up for Extra and Premium, The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, which is a very, very well-regarded open-world RPG based on the Witcher series, which also has a Netflix show now. So if you haven't played that, it's supposed to be excellent. I haven't played more than an hour or two, so I should probably get back to it. I kind of have open world game fatigue, where if a game's going to want me to play it for 80 hours, it's a hard sell sometimes. But as far as open world games are concerned, that's supposed to be one of the very greatest ones. Next up is Wild Hearts, which is kind of a bummer for me since I just bought it like 3 weeks ago. It was on sale for like half off, but on sale versus included in your subscription are different prices. So I wish I would have just waited, but it's hard to know. Anyways, Wild Hearts Standard Edition. This is kind of a Monster Hunter clone. You fight big monsters, and you use this kind of magic ring that you have to create different kind of devices, like little cubes or walls that will block like a big charging boar, and you can kind of trampoline off some of them, or a big kind of a catapult that shoots a giant spear that might have a rope on it to make a new like rope spring. You can kind of be creative in how you fight these big monsters with all of these tools that you have. It has lots of different weapons as well, kind of like Monster Hunter. You have big giant swords. There's one weapon that looks like an umbrella. I played a couple of hours of it with Devin, and it was pretty fun, even though we were a little confused at times. Next up is a very fun indie game called Cult of the Lamb. You play as this little lamb, and it's kind of a roguelite game. You're going through these different dungeons, fighting bosses. There is kind of a story there, but you're also along the way like saving different little forest creatures, and they'll become your followers in your little cult. And so between runs, you go back to kind of like an Animal Crossing like what would you call it, town that you're building up, and you can build different buildings, and you have to make food to feed your followers, or else they will revolt against you and different things. So it has a fun balance of those two things, where you're fighting and then coming back, you can name all of your followers, and kind of has a irreverent kind of vibe to it, but it is a fun game with a really cool art style. And that's on PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5. Just on PlayStation 5 is Ride 5, which is a motorcycle game. I've never played one of these, but it says here you can race on 35 tracks and get over 200 different bikes. So if you like racing games, This Ride series has been around for a long time, so it must be pretty good. Ride 5. Then you got Watch Dogs 2 on PlayStation 4. I haven't played a Watch Dogs game. Again, I kind of have open world fatigue, but the idea with these is you're kind of tech enabled, and so you can hack drones and buildings and locks and stuff to help you in your with the story while you're going along. So it's kind of GTA mixed with a little more technology focus. Yeah, if you like Watch Dogs, that's probably a big one. But I think Watch Dogs 2 came out quite a while ago, because I think they also released a third one. So you've probably already purchased it. All right, next up, there are a bunch of Sword Art Online games this month. I'm looking, and I think there are 5 that have been added to Extra and Premium. I don't know almost anything about Sword Art Online, so I'm just going to read the titles. And if you want to know more about them, you'll have to look them up apart from this podcast. But Sword Art Online Last Recollection is coming to PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5. Naruto to Boruto Shinobi Striker coming to PlayStation 4. You can battle as a team of 4 to compete against other teams online. And I don't even know, is it a 2D fighter? Lead your team and fight online to see who the best ninjas are. I haven't played that Naruto game either. All right, then 3 more Sword Art Online games back to back. You got Alicization Like Chorus on PlayStation 4, Fatal Bullet on PlayStation 4, and Hollow Realization on PlayStation 4. Then moving over to the games that are only available on Premium and won't be on Extra. Vacation Simulator on PlayStation VR and PlayStation VR 2. I think this is a sequel to Job Simulator, both of which are very highly regarded VR games, kind of with silly, I think kind of mature humor, but supposed to be very funny as you're just doing kind of menial tasks in VR. Next up are 3 Time Splitters games for PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5. So these are the PlayStation 2 games, kind of not remade actually, just kind of emulated and now available on PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5. I didn't check to see if they have trophies, but they probably do. So you've got the first one, Time Splitters 2, and then Time Splitters Future Perfect, which I believe was number 3. So if you like Time Splitters, it's been a long time since I've played any of those, but those are there as well. And then again, another Sword Art game, Sword Art Online Lost Song on PlayStation 4 is coming to Premium. And all of those games will be available on, I think, August 20th. Yeah, August 20th. So that is Tuesday. So probably the day after you're hearing this. So get ready to play all of those if you have PlayStation Plus. All right, we talked about Game Pass last week. They haven't released their Phase 2 for the month of August, so maybe that will be part of Gamescom next week. And then last up, for the Epic Game Store, they have a free game, like always. It is Death's Gambit Afterlife. This is a 2D, it kind of looks like a Metroidvania. They call it a challenging 2D action platformer with deep RPG elements. Looks very much like Castlevania, or what's the more violent one called? Oh, it's escaped me all of a sudden, but there's a lot of these kind of 2D platformers like this, the very difficult boss fights, probably has Metroidvania elements to get to new areas. I think it looks very cool. It looks like a David game through and through. I love Castlevania, so I'm excited to try this one out. I also like the kind of pixel art that looks like, I don't know if pixel art is even the right word, but it kind of looks like a PlayStation 1 game in that way, like Symphony of the Night or something. But very cool art style, in my opinion, even though I know some people, again, don't like 2D games or games with this style of art, but I think it looks pretty cool. So check that one out if you like 2D games. And then they also have a free starter pack for World of Warships. If you own that game, then you get the starter pack called Albany. I don't own that game, so I don't know what that is really. But I think you fight as battleships. And then there are a lot of free games on Prime Gaming. this month. We went over them last week, so I'm not going to list them again, but make sure you are checking that because I think once a week they update it with like 4 or 5 new ones. So check those out. Okay, next up, 2 new games this week that I thought looked notable. First up is the big one. This is Madden 25. Madden's huge. I think we all know that at this point. It'll be interesting to see how this one is received and how it sells compared to the new college football one that EA released. Because I imagine between the 2 of these and football season about to start that they're going to make so much money from these football games. But I haven't played Madden for a long time, but I really liked Madden growing up. For some reason, football, I feel like, converts better to a video game than basketball, even though basketball is my favorite, like, actual sport to follow in real life. I always enjoyed playing Madden more than, like, than NBA 2K. So, if you like Madden, those are pretty hardcore games with control schemes that are with a lot of depth, where I'm just pushing, whatever button to switch to the player to try and catch an interception. There's all kinds of like depth in those, so very cool. The other one is a small game published by Playdate, the company that, published by Panic, the company that made the Playdate, this little yellow guy here. But they also publish video games. This one is called Arco. I guess before I get to Arco, I should say that Madden has a strong 75 on OpenCritic, coming to PC, Xbox, and PlayStation. Arco here is coming to PC and Switch. Maybe it will come other places later. But it's out now on PC and Switch. And I don't know much about it other than it's hyper pixelated. I love how it looks, to be honest. So I hope it's like a fun little adventure game, but it looks like there's a lot of dialogue maybe and a little bit of farming. I should have looked into this one a little bit more. There were 4 or 5 reviews that were actually pretty good, but they're from smaller sites. They don't have a full like aggregate score yet on OpenCritic, but there were a couple 8s and a 9. So I don't know. It looks pretty solid. Looks like it might have turn-based fights, or at least no. It looks like it's actually real-time or active fights, but you can slow down time, it looks like. So I don't know, it might be really cool. That is Arco on PC and Switch. And then we're going to go over the new board games that are releasing this month, next week, when Devin is back. All right, that is all then for the news mini nuke. So that leads into what we've been playing. Devin's been playing 3 games. I'm going to let him tell us about them when he gets back, but just so you know what they were. He finished Star Wars Jedi Survivor. I think he really enjoyed it, but we'll let him tell us next week. It was fun to watch him get through some of the, what I think are some of the cool story moments in that game. There's some twists and turns that I didn't expect when I was playing it. So it'll be fun to hear his thoughts, kind of a week out after beating it. He also played a little bit of Final Fantasy 16, and I think it went okay. Instead of starting a new game, he started where he had he continued an earlier save, which was, I think, a couple hours into the game. So I think he was a little confused, at least story-wise, because of that. So I hope that that didn't give him a bad experience, because I think that game is really solid. And then he played, on his birthday, Dark Souls 2 for probably 8 or 9 hours, and I think he really enjoyed it, but it's difficult, it seems like. Lots of enemies on the screen. And it's a little older than, Elden Ring and Sekiro and some of the more recent ones, and so it'll be interesting to hear what he thought of those. I haven't played anything near as big as him. I continued playing Bo Path of the Teal Lotus a bit, and then, like I mentioned at the top, I also played Slayer again for probably, it looks like it was about an hour and 10 minutes. So I did a run of this game with a new character I played before. I think I have finished one run before with the kind of OG character that you have when you first start. This is an excellent deck building game. I think that everybody knows that likes board games. This is kind of the digital version of a deck builder that everyone looks to, like, is it as good as Slay the Spire? And even if you don't like board games and just like video games, this is like a super excellent roguelite deck building game where you're going on a run and you can customize your deck for that run in lots of different ways. You'll be getting new cards after you complete battles, and those new cards could let you focus on different things. Focus on defense, focus on attacking, and yeah, you can purge cards from your deck, and so it really has that deck building element in there very strongly, and I think it's really excellent. It's been probably a year since I had played it, so I was debating, like, do I even play this again? I don't know, but I'm really glad that I did, because the game is excellent, and I want to play it with I think all 4 of the characters. This character, I'm trying to remember what their special ability was. I have a terrible memory, so I can't remember, but yeah, it was very, very fun to build a deck out. The deck that I built was focused on cards that give me some extra damage or a buff of some sort if during that hand I discarded other cards from my hand. So I wanted cards that would let me discard others so that then those special cards would get more powerful. And it worked pretty well. I made it through the first boss and probably halfway on my way to the second boss, and then got to a pretty challenging encounter and lost. But yeah, if you haven't played Slay the Spire, it's really, really great. You can probably get it for like a Steam Deck or on Steam for like, I don't know, $5 or $10, and it's absolutely worth that. And they did announce a sequel, I think about 6 months ago. I don't remember if that's going to launch in like early access or if it will launch finished, but I'm also a little worried about that one because of the closing of Humble Games. But we'll see. Hopefully they won't have any issues with working on that. But maybe Humble isn't publishing this one. I don't know the full relationship there. But anyway, Slay the Spire is excellent. Highly, highly recommend that game if you like card games, if you like focusing on a very specific strategy with your card game. Like, okay, I'm going to really go hard after attack or after damage or after these very specific skills that let me draw a ton or that just give me more action points each turn. Yeah, very, very cool game. And you get to determine your path, kind of. You can see a little bit ahead and like, is this going to be a fight or is this going to be a merchant that will let me buy new cards or upgrade a card? Is this going to be a campfire that'll let me get some of my health back or upgrade a card? It's a really, really great system. It just feels fun to play. Okay, that is it for video games for me this week. I played 3 board games this week, and I really liked all 3 of them. First up, I played Harvest again. I did just review it on my channel, and this is probably my review that I pulled up here with the link. It is, yeah. And yeah, what a awesome game. Simple worker placement game, but at the same time you are in kind of Stardew Valley fashion. You're running your own little farm. You have to clear like a forest from your farm so that you have more spots to tend and plant crops. Then after you plant them, you can spend water to kind of grow them, and you can as long as you have water to pay for it, you could fill your entire board really quickly with that water, which feels really, really good to do. And then you can use a single harvest action to harvest all of it and get a ton of points. And that is the main mechanism of the game, is putting your workers out on spots on the board so that you can get new seeds, or so that you can send your worker out to the fields to do those planting and tending and harvesting actions, or to the workshop to get kind of buildings, which I have found aren't the best for scoring points, but can be very situational and can give you like an immediate benefit. Sometimes that's really good. So I think Harvest is excellent if you don't like games that are super complicated, but just want one that's like, around the difficulty of something like Catan or Seven Wonders, but is a different genre. It's worker placement with a little bit of a spatial puzzle for your farm. It's really, really great. yeah, can't recommend it enough. I think it nails everything that it intends to do. Each of the character cards that we're looking at here, you get to play as one of them, and they each have a special ability that's very different, and so it feels different from play to play because you're focusing on something slightly different. So yeah, I really, really love it. I think Harvest is great. I reviewed it here on my Gaming Top Down YouTube channel this week, and I gave it a Platinum Trophy, my highest honor, highest award that it can earn from Gaming Top Down for games that are a 9 out of 10 or above. So really, really love Harvest. Recommend it for sure if you want to check it out. There should be a link in the description of this video. Next up, with my board game group this week, I played Great Western Trail for the first time. I'd never played one. Played a lot of deck building games this week, but this is a deck building game where you are moving down a trail, hence the name Great Western Trail, from kind of the start of the trail to the city, where you either sell, trying to find a good picture of the trail, where you either sell your sheep for a bunch of points, and hopefully you've got valuable sheep by the time you get there, or along the way you can shear your sheep and sell their wool. You also have this board up top where you can sail kind of through the harbor and establish like little ports at different locations that can give you bonuses as well. So the main mechanism is deck building. You start with pretty basic sheep, and you can purge some of the least valuable sheep from your deck a few different ways, and then you want to get more valuable sheep, and you can do that by using different employees that you have. You store all of your employees on your player board, which is a really great player board in my opinion right here. And it keeps track of basically everything that you have during the game. There's a bit of information on it. This isn't a simple game. It's about a complexity level of, I think, 3.94 is what it just said here on Board Game Geek out of 5. So it's a fairly involved game. There was only 2 of us this week at game night, and it still took about 3 hours to play. Granted, it was my first play. I had to teach the game as well. So it was a little slow as we figured it out, but so fun. You're getting these different employees, and the top employees are, what would you call them? Like shepherds. The more of those you have, the more actions you can take when you're purchasing sheep. So that's how you get the higher level sheep, is by having those. I don't think shepherd was the right word, but maybe it was. Then you have the farmhands or the builders, and more of those let you build better quality buildings, because that's a big part of the game too. Let me find that trail picture again. Along the trail on your path to Wellington, the end of the trail where you will sell your sheep, are these different locations as you're moving along the trail, and you'll be building buildings out along the trail so that when you start back at the beginning of the trail again, next time you're moving along the trail, you have more buildings to stop at that will hopefully let you do more things. So it's a little bit of an engine building game in that way. You can build buildings like specifically in the way of the other players, because they can't get the full benefit from your buildings and you can't get the full benefit from theirs. And so you might try to corner them a little bit, and they can take a separate path, but that path might have some hazards that they have to overcome. So this trail mechanism is kind of unique too. You're building buildings, and building different buildings has a cost based on how good the building is. And so those builder workers allow you to build better buildings on those spots. Next up are the sailors, and they help you to sail. I've lost my image here. They help you to sail on the ocean board farther, and I think to take more actions while you're up there. And then the bottom are the shearers, and they will let you shear more sheep when you get the shearing action, which you could get again along the trail, so that you can sell the wool of those sheep for points kind of along the way. Maybe, and that might even be a way to kind of clear your hand of cards halfway down the trail, and then you have hopes that you'll draw some good cards before you get to Wellington. That's what I focused on in my play, was on shearing, and Our game was really, really tight. We only had a difference of a few points, but I did end up winning, which, is always a good feeling. And this game has a really good arc, I feel like. You definitely feel more capable later in the game when you have more workers. Your deck of sheep cards and deck building cards has just gotten better and better. And so during the game, I think you'll probably, on average, do about 6 journeys from the start to Wellington. And each time someone gets to Wellington, that kind of pushes the timer for the end of the game forward. And in those journeys, the 5th and 6th one, you definitely feel like, okay, I'm going to get a ton of points this way, or I could pivot here and I could shear 5 of the cards in my hand and get a lot of points from that too. So you feel a lot more capable at the end, which is a good feeling. You've also unlocked different like perks and bonuses from your player board here by removing these discs from the board. And like unlocking extra hand size. You can hold up to 6 cards at the end of the game instead of the 4 you start with, or extra movement instead of the 3 or 4 that you start with. So you can move up to 6 spots along the trail. So you can move faster, you can make more money, you can hold more cards. This was a pretty good feeling. I really enjoyed it. Only played it the one time so far, so I don't have a review or anything up, but excited to play it again. The one downside I will say to this game is the board is absolutely massive. The problem is I don't feel like it could be much smaller. There's a lot on there, and there's a lot of information. Like I said, this is a fairly complicated game. I have a 6-foot long table that I use to play games on, and even with 2 of us, basically every inch of that table was completely covered, because you have the main board, then you have the ocean board above it, and then you have these stacks of cards that kind of surround the board that each have their own little token on top of them to differentiate them, because you can earn them in different ways. Then each player has their own big player board, and they need to set up the 10 buildings that they have the potential of building, so that you can see those, and then you need to have a place for your draw pile and your discard pile. So it's very much a table hog. With 4 players, I would have had to expand or extend my table and insert the leaf in the middle. So I don't know what the perfect player count is for this one. I do think it would be more fun with 3 maybe, so that there's more competition for the building spots. But yeah, I'm not 100% sure how to fit that many people to play this game. Very big board. That's the only downside. I really enjoyed it. I thought the deck building was very fun. And just the moment-to-moment gameplay of feeling like you're always getting better. I'm getting more workers. I'm clearing off my board, which is making me stronger. I'm moving my boat around. Yeah, really, really great game. Really enjoyed it. Then, last up, I played a solo game of a game that was on Kickstarter. I think the campaign did just end. But this game was called Yonder. It's a worker placement game from Sinister Fish Games, and they have published a few games in smaller boxes. I think Streets, Villagers, and Moon are the 3 games. I have Moon. I don't have Streets and Villagers. I really like Moon. Kind of replaced 7 Wonders for me. I think it's a better card drafting game, in my opinion. But so yeah, I really like their games. And this game is a bigger box instead of a half-size box like they're known for. This is a full-size box worker placement game. And the shtick here is that each worker is different. So it has a fantasy theme, kind of light fantasy. You've got ogres and dwarves and elves and skeletons and goblins, I think, is the 5 different types of workers. And each worker, except for the goblin, has a special ability. And the goblin actually kind of does too, because anytime you get a goblin, you get them in pairs, so you get 2 of them. But the elf, for example, is nimble, so they can go to a worker placement spot even if another character's there, as long as that other character isn't an elf. So if there's an ogre or a dwarf somewhere, I can put an elf there, even though that spot would usually be blocked. Dwarves can build buildings, which are these cards, for a discount of 1, because they're good at building, so you pay 1 fewer resource. And then ogres are the big red ones, and wherever you place them, if it's a resource generating spot, they generate double of whatever that resource is. So double food or double hay, double stone, they generate double. Then there's the skeletons. And I guess before I explain them, I should explain one other thing. So other than just spots on the board, when you build buildings, what you're trying to do with dwarves sometimes to get the discount, those buildings are cards that you put in front of you in your own little area, tableau, and they also have worker placement spots on them. And so then you can start putting your workers there. You can also put your workers in other players' tableaus or areas. The cool thing about that is at the end of each round, of which there are 5, whichever workers are in your settlement are yours, even if you're not the one who put them there. And 2 things have to happen. You have to feed all of them, or else you lose 3 points for each one you can't feed, and they are lost back to the general supply. But then you get them all into your supply. So you can kind of mess with other players in that way. Again, I played solo, so I didn't fully see this, but even the solo bot would throw some of those ogres on my cards, which made it tricky because, like I said, at the end of each round, you have to feed all of your workers. And ogres, since they generate twice as much, they also eat twice as much. They have to eat 2 food or else they are lost. And so you can put a worker on a card in another player's tableau, knowing that they're going to have to scrounge up enough food to pay for him, or else they're going to lose points and not be able to keep him. And you still got the benefit from playing them on their card. Because of that, you're constantly watching what other players are doing. Again, I think it's a pretty cool design. I have so many worker placement games and there are so many. It's such a popular gameplay mechanism, and I understand why. It's a really smooth thing. Okay, I'm going to put this piece here, which represents me doing something, and then that generally blocks other people from doing it. It's a cool interaction point. I really like worker placement. There's just so many of them that it's kind of tricky to stand out. But I do think the artwork and the publisher here help it stand out. There are also these cool contract cards. Are called envoys in this game on the right side of the board. And you can complete an envoy and basically take that card down to your settlement as well. And you put one of your boat tiles on it when you do that. And those envoys have a little, what would you call that? Like a conversion on the bottom that you can turn 2 wood into a meat, which counts as 2 food. And then you also get points equal to however many points are available that round. And the interesting thing about this game is those contracts, you fill them when you take the card, but you're committing to doing that conversion every round from that point on. And if you ever don't complete that envoy by at least doing 1 conversion and putting one of your ships on top of it, then you lose that envoy, or kind of that contract with another nation or whatever it symbolizes, and you lose 5 points, which is pretty brutal. So it's an engine building game in that way too, where you're really careful about not taking envoys that you're not going to be able to complete each round. There are a couple of ways that you can purge an envoy and not be penalized, but there are very, very few of them. So you've got to be careful when you take them. It was a really fun time. I really enjoyed playing it. The solo bot was pretty simple. You just shuffle 6 cards, take two of them out each round, and then the 4 that are left will be his actions for the round, and he'll block spots and maybe put some workers out on your settlement or things like that. It's a really fun game. I would recommend it, especially to players that want something just a step up from entry-level games. I think on the Kickstarter page it said medium weight, and I think I agree with that. There's a little bit of thinking that goes on, like how am I going to combo this into getting Arcana, which will let me go up the favor track, or excuse me, which will let me place one in the upper city, which might let me move up the favor track and then maybe get another Arcana. So you can kind of have some crazy turns, and then that envoy system about having to complete those contracts every turn kind of makes the complexity go up a little bit from like an entry-level game. But artwork's very fun. I like the visual flair that they have over there at Sinister Fish. And it seems like it will be a winner. It comes out next year, but I did do a solo playthrough of that game. All right, that is it for what I have been playing this week. Just a little bit of news and crowdfunding corner for board games, and then we'll get out of here kind of faster this week. All right, in video games, there is a rumor going around right now that video game developers have been told by Nintendo that they should not expect the next Switch in this current financial year. Their financial year ends at the end of March 2025. So that kind of means that the Switch could come out at the earliest in April of 2025. And I think that kind of lines up. I believe that the original Switch came out in March of 2017 or whatever year that was that it came out. So around the same time next year, probably, maybe in April, May, or June. I think that would be a good launching point for them. So not a ton there, just a little rumor with some information about that. Kind of the biggest release date information this week was for Dragon Age: The Veilguard. I have not played a Dragon Age game, but I know that they're loved. I think the first one was like a computer RPG. They have become more like action and active time battle focused as opposed to turn-based battles, if I am remembering kind of what I've read about the first few. But game looks very pretty. This is a BioWare game, so hopefully it can kind of be a return to form for BioWare since they've had some rough times the last 5-6 years. Game looks really pretty. I think some of the characters seem cool, and I think a lot of people have been excited by the gameplay that they've seen. I know there have been some some corners of the internet that have not enjoyed kind of the dialogue that they've heard, but you know, we've only seen short snippets of the game to this point, so a little hard to judge. But anyways, if you're excited for Dragon Age: The Veilguard, the release date is October 31st, so it comes out on Halloween. And I think they're going to have a lot more details and even a new trailer maybe next week at Gamescom, which is going to be a big deal. There should be a lot of stuff announced next week. It should be a long show. I don't remember which day. The 20th, which I think is Tuesday, will be the day before we record. So yeah, we should go over the Gamescom stuff next week. Okay, next up, which is the news I'm most excited for this week, I think, but The Plucky Squire is an indie game that's gotten quite a bit of buzz for how pretty it looks. It basically like a 2D art book style game with then being able to hop off of the page and play in a 3D space as well with very colorful and cute artwork. They released a release trailer that kind of joked around that their release date was going to be in 2025, and then the character was like picking up the names of months and throwing them around to see which ones completed this puzzle. Yeah, the game looks so excellent in my opinion. I'm very excited about it, and I'm really excited about this piece of news. So it comes out on September 17th, which is just about a month away. It's also coming to PlayStation Plus, Extra, and Premium on day one, which is really cool, and I think a really good get for PlayStation. Hopefully the game will be as awesome as it looks, because I do think it looks very excellent. Very excited for that one. So September 17th, The Plucky Squire. Definitely check that one out, especially if you have PlayStation Plus, because you could check it out totally included in your subscription fee. So, all right. Next up, there was another rumor this week, kind of, I think, sparked by Shinobi on Twitter. But basically, Forza Horizon is heavily rumored right now to be the next game coming from Xbox over to PlayStation. And there was this, I guess, listing on Amazon kind of spotted that it might be coming out on September 27th, which is pretty soon. So it's always kind of exciting lately to try and see what Xbox's strategy is with releasing their games elsewhere, which they have already done 4 big games, with Sea of Thieves being the biggest one that has had a massive resurgence for that game. And then what other ones did they do? They did Hi-Fi Rush and Pentiment. There was one more, I believe, but now it's left me and I can't remember. But anyways, there will probably be many, many more, and it seems like maybe coming quickly if this one is really coming out on September 27th. We'll see. Okay, game delay here. Kingdom Come Deliverance is the sequel to, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is the sequel to the first one. And it was supposed to come out, I believe, in November, and they've pushed it to February 11th of 2025. And they're going to have a 20-minute gameplay demo next week at Gamescom. So if you want to see that, check it out with all the Gamescom coverage. I think that a lot of games are just trying to get out of the way of Call of Duty. Even though November is a little after Call of Duty comes out, they probably need a little time to polish too. I feel like the general video game player is getting less and less okay with games being buggy at launch. And so hopefully the polish will help them out. Anyways, little note there about that delay. Two more things here. A new service is coming to PlayStation soon. It's already available on Xbox, and I think it's been for like a year. It's called Ant Stream Arcade, and it lets you stream old arcade games, and I believe they have over 1,500 arcade games on this service. I just saw Bubble Bobble, which makes me very happy. That's one of my favorite arcade games, and a lot of these I've never seen before. Again, there's Metal Slug, I believe, but yeah, I just kind of missed the arcade time. I was born in 1990, and it didn't. Yeah, I don't know. We got a PlayStation when I was 5. And we just kind of played at home from that point. So anyways, but I know the arcade was a big thing for a lot of people. This system seems pretty cool. It has like tournaments and trophies and achievements, and they're adding games all the time. The cost for the service is, what did I write down here? $40 for a year, or they have a lifetime pass for $100. So that you could, I guess, play all of the games they add forever if you pay $100. Anyways, an interesting service. Maybe check it out if you like older games like that, arcade games. I'd be nervous about the streaming aspect. I wish you could download them, and maybe you can. I didn't look into that, but it is called Ant Stream, and in the little bit of reading I did, it mentioned like stream old arcade games. So I think it is like a streaming service. So how good could I be at Space Invaders or Galaga or something if there's a tiny bit of input lag? I'm not sure. Maybe the streaming is really good. Streaming older games like that is probably a bit easier too. It's probably less resource intensive. But anyways, that's coming soon, they said, to PlayStation. And then Stalker 2 just released, and I think that's published by Microsoft and Xbox, a 35-minute gameplay deep dive. Kind of all about the game. I don't know much about Stalker, but just kind of looking at some video, it looks like it's kind of got Fallout vibes, like for sure. Very pretty looking game. This second game in the series, I believe it comes out in November, and I think it's been pretty well anticipated, and there's a lot of people kind of clamoring for it. So if you're interested in Stalker, check that out. Again, that's not a series I'm really familiar with, but as I watched the video, I was thinking maybe I need to get familiar with it because it looks pretty cool. Anyways, that is Stalker 2 if you want to see 35 minutes of gameplay about that one. All right, next up, we've got just movie and TV show news. And I thought this one was cool. It's a kind of small thing that a lot of people probably won't care about, but Prime is making a new series, a video game anthology series called Secret Level from the creator of Love, Death, and Robots. And it's going to consist of original short stories set within different video game worlds. And some of the titles that are rumored for episodes are New World, Spelunky, and some PlayStation games. And just the inclusion of Spelunky there is super awesome to me. Spelunky is one of the best games ever made, in my opinion. And so I think it deserves this kind of love. So hopefully that show would be cool. If they can pick some really cool games to include, that could be really, really fun. Hopefully they can get some consultants that really understand those games really well. Because I imagine there are some executives at Prime Video that do not understand those games very well. But cool idea, I think, for an anthology series. Okay, let me close some of these tabs And then we are going to hop over to board games and get right into a crowdfunding corner this week. First up is a little print and play game, but it's from a very excellent company in this space. This game's called Koala Rescue Club from Postmark Games, and they've made probably published 4 or 5 different print and play games that are all excellent. I've only played 3 of them, I think. I haven't played their newest one. But those games are Voyages, which I think is my favorite of the ones that they have published. And then they publish Aquamarine, Waypoints, and Battle Card. And I actually haven't played Waypoints or Battle Card, but I have the first 2. This one is a bit simpler, kind of aimed, at least in its artwork, at kids a little bit. You're rolling dice, and I think, if I understand correctly, kind of planting trees to help save the forest for these koala bears. It's a $6 print and play pledge, so you'll get the files in September, it says. And then you can laminate them or play right on your iPad or right on your PC. You roll a die and then can activate different trees and different items on your board. And the note that they had here towards the bottom is that they are including map number 1 is like the good entry point that you could play with like your kids. So it's a very simple map. And then from maps 2 and onward to any others that they add, we'll be adding some extra complexity for anyone that wants that. And they have been pretty good at adding like different versions, different maps to kind of freshen up the game. And those maps just come included in your pledge. So once you've pledged, then in 3 months later, you might get an email saying, hey, we've added map 3 and then map 4. And then you can print those and play them as well. They have such a good pedigree that I'm very interested in this one. I just want to read the rule book and thoroughly to see how it works, but I think it looks really, really great. For $7, well, I think it said $6 actually at the top. You can get Koala Rescue Club. It's on Kickstarter for 8 more days, ends on Sunday, August 25th. Next up is one that was just announced pretty recently. It's the sequel to So You've Been Eaten. It's called So You've Been Cursed. And in this one, you play as either this wizard who's been cursed to turn into a monster, or you can play as the kind of a monster. And you can play solo, or you can play 2 players. And there's actually a 0-player mode where I think just through some cards or something, both the wizard and the monster are kind of simulated, and you could watch the game kind of play against itself, which is really unique, but cool looking game. I like the idea. The wizard is trying to gather different potions and stuff, I think from the people in town in order to cure themselves to win. And the monster is trying to eat the people in town in order to become so cursed that there is no coming back. I haven't read the rulebook of this one either, but the components are pretty cool. I think the game visually looks solid. And so if the gameplay holds up as well, I think it could be a cool one. The basic version is $29. The premium version comes with some extra wooden tokens instead of cardboard tokens, is $10 more. And then you've always got to worry about shipping. So let's take a peek at that really quick. And I don't know if they say, $9 for shipping. That's actually pretty low compared to a lot of other campaigns. So You've Been Cursed, I think looks pretty solid. Okay, 4 more. We've got The Cats of Mont Saint, and I don't even know, Mont Saint Michel. And this game is if I remember quickly what I read, it's kind of a game trying to do too much, in my opinion. It has a solo and co-op mode, and then also a competitive mode. Well, maybe it doesn't have a competitive mode. Sorry, I'm trying to remember every detail about this one. You play as these different cats. You're trying to banish the Crimson Cardinal Rat and his vermin army. I think it's kind of a dungeon crawling game. You have your cats on a map, and you're fighting those rats, trying to beat them. And so, yeah, I think it is a solo and co-op only game. It has, similar to Gloomhaven and Jaws of the Lion, kind of the map booklet. So you'll flip to different scenarios and lots of different cats that you can play as. I'm very, very, very picky with dungeon crawls like this. I've yet to find one that I have really loved. But I do like how these pieces look, and the cat artwork is kind of funny. Double layer boards, love those. So yeah, I don't know, if you like a good dungeon crawl, this might be one for you. This game is on GameFound and has a few different pledge levels. I think they have yeah, you can get the Perfection Pledge, which has a big box that holds the base game and 4 different, I think, expansions, or 4 different miniature sets for $179.95. That might be Canadian. Yeah, I think it is Canadian. It has a C on it, but anyways, dungeon crawling game, probably not for David, but it did seem to be doing pretty well and wanted to give it a shout out. Has 12 days left on GameFound, so it ends on August 29th. Cool. Okay, Dogs with Jobs is a very unique looking one. I don't know. I thought the kind of the packaging and the graphic design was so interesting looking. I thought I would bring it up here, even though I don't think the game is a David game at all. Plays 2 to 5 players in 15 to 30 minutes, and you are trying to get these different dog cards to complete different kind of job cards, and whoever gets the most of those to get points will win. It's a pretty simple idea there, but I thought the idea with it being different dogs was kind of funny, in my opinion. So anyways, not much to say about this one. Again, I don't think it's a David game really, but I like dogs, I guess, and wanted to just bring it up. So that is Dogs with Jobs. It ends on August 30th. Okay, a couple other small ones. Seventh Inning Stretch is a solo only game from this company called, what was it called here? Founder of Best with One game. So I think they focus just on solo games. You can actually play this one with 2 players, but I think it's primarily a solo game. You are trying to get different baseball players to your team, and then you roll dice to like hit and get your players on base to try and score, and try and win a bunch of baseball games, I think, to win the season. And there was an explanation here of how it works, but they do even say in the 2-player mode that you can play a full 9-inning game against each other in under an hour. And then in the solo mode, I think you like simulate an entire season if you want to. Cool idea. I like the kind of retro looking baseball card framework, or artwork, excuse me, that they have in the box. $24, and I think the shipping was pretty reasonable at $5. Yeah, $5 in America. So again, kind of an indie publisher, but give it a view. Check it out, and if you like solo games especially, maybe it will appeal to you. Seventh Inning Stretch ends again at the end of the month on the 29th. All right, and then last one for this week is another print and play roll and write game. This one's called Transcribe the Art of Alchemy, and I believe it's $7 instead of $6 for the other one. Well, it's actually $7 Australian dollars, so $5 US dollars is what they're estimating there. And this one looks kind of cool in that you are making a little engine, putting different directional arrows in this grid, and then when a die is rolled, you get to choose if you want to activate all of the movement arrows in a column that matches that die number or the row that matches that die number. And then you'll start at one of your stars and then kind of branch off to in moving all of those directions. And if you land on a special space, then you get something good as well, all in the hopes of getting points as well. I think that is a pretty cool system of building up your little movement engine by placing those arrows in different spots like that. And so, and I think visually it looks pretty like clean and nice. Need to read the rule book, but I thought that one looked like kind of a winner. For the $5 pledge, you get 2 game sheets, which includes 4 map variants and the rule book. So again, if you like roll and write games and want to try one out for a very low cost, you can do that with a printer and a laminator if you really want to get crazy. So anyways, I thought that one looked pretty fun as well. That is Transcribe, the Art of Alchemy. It ends Saturday, August 31st. For my pick of the week, I'm going to go with Koala Rescue Club, back here by Postmark Games, just because I really like Voyages and kind of their quality level at Postmark, I think is very, very solid. And the fact that they continually like send you new maps after you have backed their games, I just really like what they're doing. This one's actually made by, the game was designed by Phil Walker Harding. Very famous designer nowadays. He's done dozens and dozens of games. So they got a good agreement with him to make this game for them. And yeah, I think this one looks really cool. So You've Been Cursed also looks really fun in my opinion, but I'm going to give the edge for pick of the week, to a Koala Rescue Club. Okay, that's going to do it for Crowdfunding Corner this week. So to close this episode, again, I don't have Devin, so I'm just going to talk in a brief little segment here. We're a little more than halfway through the year, right? We're in the 8th month, so I guess a little ways past halfway. But here at the end of this episode, I want to talk about the best games that I have played this year that were new to me. That doesn't necessarily mean that the game came out this year. Especially in board games where the release dates are way more variable and you have the physical product that has to ship, as opposed to a video game release date is immediate. I can download the digital copy in 10 minutes. So there's a bit more clarity there. So I'm going to go over video games first, my favorite ones I've played this year and the ones I'm still looking forward to for the rest of the year, and then same thing for board games. So pulling up those here, my favorite games that I've played this year so far, video games are concerned at least. First up is definitely Animal Well. Wow, I really like it as a Metroidvania puzzle game. I heard, I think I may have said this on the podcast before already, but I saw a YouTube video on my feed that said, we need a name for this genre that is the best new genre, and it's called he said, I think we should call it the Metroidbrania, because it's games like this and Fez where you're trying to kind of just level up your brain so that you can make more progress in the game, not necessarily working on getting a double jump or something. Animal Well is super great as long as you don't mind the pixelated aesthetic, which I think is actually really well done. Like the lighting especially is like super excellent. So the game is very, very pretty and it's just so fun. I think getting to like the main ending is like a solid achievement, and then there is like an entire world of much further depth and harder puzzles if you want to get into it with that amount of craziness. But yeah, Animal Well, definitely one of my favorites. Next up, at least in video games, most of them are little indie games. Balatro is my next one. Really, really like this rogue card game as well. Super, super fun. Trying to, again, use some deck building to customize your deck to synergize well with the different jokers that you've been able to get. And having turns where you're able to get just a ton of points. I haven't had any like million point turns yet. I haven't played it quite enough. But I've had some with like hundreds of thousands of points in a single turn, and it's just a really good feeling. The music is fun. The artwork is really cool. Runs can be pretty quick. As you get more and more used to the game, you kind of start to understand like what the different visual clues mean. Like, what's a gold card mean, and why is this one got a stamp on it? Yeah, Balatro is really, really great. They just announced it sold 2 million copies, so he's made so much money, and good for him, because it is excellent. Next up, another kind of smaller game, but this is probably my favorite Metroidvania. I've played this. This is Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown, and what a fun game. I really like the Prince of Persia IP. Sands of Time, I think, was excellent, and I basically liked all of the games in that kind of 3D series. And yeah, this one is really, really fun. You get some really cool abilities. I feel like some of the fighting throughout the open world is a little less than amazing, where you're just fighting the same enemy sometimes. But the boss fights are so cool that kind of makes up for it. It has really high production values. They're about to launch, I think, an expansion in a month or two. Really, really solid game. You can probably get it for about $20 nowadays if you wait for a good sale. So highly recommend that one, Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown. And then for a big game, this is actually also not a AAA game, but a game. Helldivers 2 is one of my favorite games this year as well, just because of how fun it is to laugh and play and accidentally blow up your friends playing, and just getting ridiculous weaponry and grenades and launching missiles from space down on these bugs or robots. It is a really, really good time. I haven't played it in a couple of months, and I know they just had a big expansion launch. Yeah, just such a good game. It had a lot of buzz, coming out for $40 instead of the normal like $70 cost for a game. I think helped them a ton, and it launching on PC at the same time. Yeah, what a cool game. Helldivers 2 is really, really excellent, especially if you can at least play with one friend. If you can get 2 or 3 friends, I think it's even better, but even just one friend that you like to play with, it really shines in that aspect. So really love that. As far as games, video games that I'm still looking forward to this year, this one launches just next week. I'm excited and a little nervous about it. The reviews for it just came out today. This is Black Myth Wukong, and it reviewed pretty dang well, to be honest. But in almost every single one of those reviews, they mentioned that Game Science only sent them codes for the PC version, and even on the PC version, they were noticing some weird glitches and bugs. And so people are a little worried about the PlayStation 5 version that comes out on Tuesday, on the 20th, that it might be a little more framey, a little more buggy, and nobody really knows at this point because nobody has PS5 codes. And that's where I would play it. So a little nervous about that, but if I have to wait a couple months for them to iron some stuff out, that's fine by me. I think the game looks like visually very cool. I don't understand a ton about like the interpretation here of the Chinese story Journey to the West, but even as someone who doesn't know almost anything about that, I think it visually just looks really cool. The animations are crazy, like smooth and pretty, and the fights look really, really fun. It's supposed to be a pretty big game that's also supposed to be very difficult. I've heard that it's difficult, but in like a different way than Souls games, where it's not like as punishing. You don't lose like currency when you die and things like that, but that the fights can be unforgiving as well. Looks very, very awesome. Excited for that one. And then other than that one, all of the rest of them are like colorful, cute, what you might even call kids games, but hey, I can be a 3-year-old kid if I want to. And next one is Astrobot, which comes out, I think, in September. So it's pretty close as well. And Astrobot is like so much fun. Has a lot of PlayStation like nostalgia built into it, with a lot of references to different PlayStation games, God of War and Crash Bandicoot and things like that. And it looks like they've really made like a fun 3D platformer and fleshed it out into what they were saying in some interviews is that the game's actually pretty big. I think with like 80 or something levels and 6 or 7 worlds with bosses and things like that. So I'm really excited to try this one. It also has that cool Astrobot controller that you can buy. They're a little being scalped right now for like double the price. So hopefully you can find one if you really want one. But yeah, Astrobot is definitely one of my most anticipated games of the year, and one of the only games this year that I'll probably pay full price for. Which is kind of funny that it's Astrobot and not I don't know, something more gamery, but this is very much in my wheelhouse. Next up is Zelda Echoes of Wisdom. I think Nintendo is the king of, I don't know, games that have this kind of kid-friendly art style, but then just enough depth for or are simple enough to play that kids can get into them, but then have just enough depth and sometimes in like the post ending dungeons and things like that for adults to really enjoy as well. I'm very excited about this one. You don't play as Link in this game. Link has kind of been captured, so you play as Zelda, and she plays very differently. She uses her magic staff to kind of make clones of different objects called echoes, and they show quite a few of them. You can echo a bunch of different things. They show like couches and blocks and plants like that, and then the later trailer they showed how you can tie like big objects to Zelda through like a linking mechanic where if you move, that giant stone or whatever will move as well. So seems pretty puzzle focused, which is okay with me since that's right up my alley. So very excited for that one. This next game we already talked about today. That's the Plucky Bear, and I'm very excited that I'm going to play this one without paying any money for it. I am paying for my subscription, so I get that, but no additional money. Just visually, it looks so cool, and I really hope that it can, I don't know, live up to it. And it reminds me of what's that game? What's that Mario game called? Super Mario Odyssey, where you're always hopping into the wall and back out. Hopefully, this one can have some creative ideas when you're in the different dimensions. I've seen a couple spots where you like hop on kind of like a little spaceship and it turns into a shmup for a second while you're going around a coffee cup or something like that. So if they are doing fun little mini games with some of their Switches too, I think it could feel really unique. Very excited for that one. And then last up is another Nintendo game for me, Mario and Luigi Brothership. I'm to try this one out as well. I haven't played one of these what are they called? Mario and Luigi games that were on DS and I think the 3DS. I just never had a DS, which I know a lot of people loved the DS, but yeah, didn't have one. I had a Game Boy Advance, which I really loved. Really loved that. Castlevania and Mario Golf and Mario Kart machine for me. But yeah, I haven't played one of these Mario and Luigi games. And it looks pretty fun. It's kind of like a lighthearted RPG where you do like attacks together and you have some timing with the turn-based fights that looks pretty fun. And visually, I think it just looks excellent. It's kind of like cel-shaded. I don't know. I'm not an artist, so I don't know how that would be like perfectly defined, but it looks very, very cool. So that's Mario and Luigi Brothership, and that is going to round out the games that I am excited for and my favorite video games that I've played this year so far. In board games, my favorite games that I've played this year, and for the ones I'm most excited for, I've got quite a list. Some of them did come out this year, some of them didn't, and I'm just a little late to the party. But really quick, I'll talk about this one briefly since I've already talked about it a lot today and in previous weeks. But Harvest is great. Just came out this year from Keymaster Games, a worker placement game where you are building your own little farm. And I think it nails like the 60 to maybe 75, maybe 90 if you're playing with 4 slow people minute like worker placement game, like really, really well. I don't see this one ever leaving my collection just because it does what it does really, really well. Sticks to like a really solid time frame And there's quite a bit of different like paths and strategies you can take, kind of dictated by which character card you're using that game. But then you can also like, okay, I'm going to focus a lot on pumpkins this game because they're worth a lot of points, but they cost a lot to get out. And so, yeah, I don't know. It's really, really great. Love Harvest. Another game I got recently, this one didn't come out this year, but I think it came out last year. This is Arborea, which is a very pretty game, even though it kind of looks like a fever dream and is sometimes color overload, but it's very, very fun. You are putting your little, what do they call them? Villagers on these little paths. And then those paths will slide forward. And anytime they slide forward, even if it's not your turn, if you're on the path somewhere, you can decide if you want to hop off. And then you follow that on your turn. You'll follow that trail all the way to the end and get everything that you pass. The longer you stay on that little trail, kind of waiting and waiting and waiting and hoping that other people will go there on their turn to push it farther and farther along, the better your hop off spot will be. And so that's a cool kind of interaction point where you think, okay, I know that my opponent probably wants to go there. I'm going to stick a worker or two on there first so that they push me along and I don't really have to focus there, but I'm still getting a benefit from that. Then down here on the bottom left, the resources in this game are shared. So you don't store like any water or plants or anything for yourself. When you earn them, you move half of this token up to show how many you've earned. And then you can spend them on your turn, just like normal, like if you're paying for something. But any that you don't spend will bank at the end of your turn, and the bottom half of that piece will slide all the way up and score you all of the point numbers you pass. So you can have really big turns where you score a lot of points just by earning like a ton of water, for example. Even if you don't spend it on your turn, you could score like 25 points and you'd be leaving a lot of water for the next player to use, but you scored 25 points by earning it all. So that is a really fun interaction point too, where all of the resources are shared. So you can wait for somebody to earn a lot of one specific resource. They'll get a lot of points for doing so, but then you can use them when it's your turn. Very cool. And then you're building this little simple card grid with different creatures on it in order to score points. Different creatures want to be next to different habitats, and maybe you like within eyesight or in a direct line from a different type of creature. So a few different mechanisms tying together there. This is a fairly complex game as well, probably like 3.5 or something on the complexity scale out of 5, but yeah, it's really, really cool. Yeah, 3.69 actually is what it says here. Really like Arborea. I've liked some complex games this year. Next up is another kind of complex one. I really like Sand. This one is a pick up and deliver game that's very tight. It's hard to get places in the game, and it's hard to pick up resources, and it's hard basically to do everything, to sell them. But I like that tightness. You're moving with your silkworm to these different regions. You can move on the regular path, which takes 2 movements to get to the next town, or you can take a shortcut, but moving along a shortcut costs a lot more of your silkworm's hunger and thirst. So it's all about that tightness and trying to figure out how can I maximize my moves, because I'm going to run out of hunger and health and thirst fast. I think the coolest feeling in this game is when you sell anything. I'm trying to find a picture of the player board, and I'm not finding a good one. When you sell anything in the game, you don't put it back in like the general supply. You slot it into your record of goods sold. It's the right half of your board, and it'll just kind of become a big line of all of the goods you've sold. When you place it in there, you will also set it on top of some perk that you get immediately. It might be some points or some health or thirst back, and then they will also be scored at the end of the game. So you can look over at everyone else's records of goods sold to see what they've sold, which of the different goods types they have like sold more of you than. I really like that mechanism where even though it's hard to sell stuff, it sits there as like a good job, David, you've done okay. Even if you're losing, I still sold some stuff and I feel good about it because it's sitting there kind of showing me that I did this. And you can upgrade your silkworm to move better and get these cool companions, but a pretty tricky game in how you play it. You have to use these action tokens that match the colors of the 4 dice that are rolled, and if you're holding a good of the same color as one of them, that action token becomes locked and can't be used until you have sold it. So it's a tricky puzzle that, like I said, is tight and it's difficult to move. And some people, I think, will not like it because of that. But I really enjoy it. I think sand is really, really great. And sand kind of got me on a Devere kick this year because I already had bamboo, but after playing sand, and I like bamboo quite a bit, I decided to get the White Castle. And I've played this one even more times than sand. I think the White Castle is really great. It's does a lot with a little. It's a small little board, comes in a pretty small box, and you only get, 9 turns in the whole game. And so it's, again, an efficiency puzzle I really like. We talked about puzzle video games. I like puzzles and efficiency puzzles in board games as well. You're trying to make the most of those turns by taking the right die that will help you to combo one action into another, use some of your seals or money to be able to place out one worker, which lands you on a spot that might let you place out another worker, and you're trying to move these different courtesans up the White Castle and put samurais out in the fields over here and get gardeners over here by the bridges. A very nice and elegant system for the dice. You draft one from the high or low end of the bridge, and then whichever die is next to that one will slide over to fill that spot. And then you use those pips in order to pay for the actions you're doing. White Castle's great. I'm excited to see what the expansion that's coming out will add to it. I hope that, and as I say this, I don't think it's going to, but I love it when expansion content can fit in the base box so that I don't have to worry about, okay, I want to play the White Castle now, I've got to get 2 boxes out. But their boxes at Devere are so small, which I like, actually. I like that they don't take up a lot of the space on my shelf. But because of that, I imagine that whatever's in that, I think it's a Maca expansion, is going to be too big to fit in the base box, but that's okay. White Castle is a really, really great game. Another one I really liked is Tinner's Trail. This is an auction game where you're trying to make the most money by auctioning and purchasing these different mines throughout the land here. This is kind of a later game state where it can get a little busy on the board, but you purchase a mine, and that mine will mine copper and tin, and you're hoping that that mine has a lot of copper and a lot of tin and as little water as possible, because water, the presence of water at your mine makes it more expensive for you to mine the copper and tin out. And then you use that copper and tin and sell it for money. And the cool thing about this game is how it works. It's kind of a unique system where someone will start a bid for a mine, and before they start a bid, they can decide if they want to scout the mine by peeking at it, and then optionally, I think, playing a card there that would make the mine better. And if they do that, then they will get half of whatever the winning bid is. They don't have to do that part if they don't want to, but then players will go around the board kind of bidding on the mine, and your money is a very tight resource in the game. And whoever wins it will get to play some of their pieces there, and it will be their mine. And then, yeah, you can use actions to extract the tin and copper from the mine. Then at the end of each round, you will sell all of the tin and copper that you have earned from your mines at their market price. And then all of the money that you have, you track your money and your investments or points on the same track. And at the end of each round, you can convert as many of your money into points at these different conversion ratios as you want, but you want to make sure you leave yourself with enough money going into the next round so that you can, have enough to buy another mine or to use that money for other things. So a very cool push and pull there. The auction system is kind of fun. Board gets a little busy, like you can see here with the different cubes. There's also an arsenic expansion that adds little green cubes to go along with the copper and tin. And we played with, I think we played with 5 players, and it was, the board was very full, but it was fun. I really, really liked it. So that's a genre of game I don't have a lot of, like an auction style game. And I think this is a solid one. So that is Tinner's Trail. Another game I really enjoyed this year is The Veil of Eternity. This is a pretty simple combo building card game where you're just trying to race to get, I think, to 80 points to end the game. And you do that with a cool system of how you draft the cards, and then in how you can play the cards down in front of you or sell the cards for some resource money coins that you can spend. And there's a few different limits in the game. You can't ever have more cards down in front of you than the round number. So in the second round, you can only have up to 2 cards down in front of you. So you're limited in that way. And then you can only ever have 4 pieces of currency, and they are in values 1, 3, and 6, and you never get change. So how you're able to manage those is also very important. And yeah, the cards are just, it's a really fun, simple kind of card drafting game where I say simple, but then there is enough depth in that it is fun. And it probably plays in 30 minutes to an hour. There's a small like card expansion coming for this one. I say small, I think it has like 80 cards or something, but called Artifacts, that I think comes out at the end of this year, maybe. Veil of Eternity is a really fun card game. Kind of has a Pokemon vibe to it with these different animals, but it's really all about kind of the math in the cards. Like, okay, I get to activate this card at the end of every round, and it will give me 2 of this currency that are value 3 each. Then I can use those to combo into buying a card next round, or into converting those 3s into some points or some other action. So it's kind of a combo engine building game in that way. It's really fun. Okay, and then the last one I actually played last night. And I've played it a few times this year, just delivered in January. It's called Fractured Sky, and this is a very unique game. I don't have like any other games like it in my collection, so I'm glad I have it. It's not one that I always want to play because there is a bit of luck involved in the game. So I hope that the expansion that is coming out next January will kind of help with that a bit, with the different set collection that they're adding with different colored victory points. But in this game, you are trying to get these starfall pieces, which are the victory points of the game, and they will be in one of 10 different locations on the board each round. But those locations are hidden with these upside down blue cards. So you don't know where they are, but you can spend resources to peek at those cards, and then you know what cards other people have peeked at, and you might know one of the 2 resources of a location that someone's peeked at, and then you watch them put a ship down. That ship, at the bottom of the ship is a little magnet piece that has a value from 0 to 10 on it, with a different amount of troops they can assign to that area. So they might have thrown a 0 there to bluff, or they could, be throwing an 8 or a 9 there, or even a 10. And so then you maybe don't want to combat them there. Whoever has the most troop strength in a region at the end of the round would win any of the starfall that are there. There can be multiple starfall in the same location if some other things line up. So it's a hidden information game where you're trying to figure some things out that nobody else knows, and then trying to kind of watch the people on the table to deduce what they're doing. You are also building a little bit of an engine by putting out these market pieces that will let you get more resources from the connected regions, and then the fortresses give you more troop strength in the connected resources. So there's a little bit of Euroness kind of built in there, but it's really all about like the bluffing and the hidden information and peeking and trying to be good with your timing on like, when do I bluff and when do I go hard after the locations that I know are going to have some victory points this round. Because if you get 7 points, you'll probably win in this game. Depending on the player count, that can fluctuate a little bit, but with 7 points being like a winning score, the one downside to that is occasionally you can luck into a point if like nobody peaked at the end of round objective, or somebody else did, and you just happen to it happened last night actually. I peaked at one, and it was whoever has the most markets connected to woeful wetlands, and one of the other players I was playing with already had 4 markets in that connected to that region. I was just like, okay, there's no way I can take this from him. So I just wasted some resources looking at something that I know I can't win, and he didn't even peek at it and won a Starfall, kind of completely out of luck. That is the one downside to this game. You have to be okay with a little bit of luck, in my opinion. But the rest of the interactions in the game, I think, are really fun. Putting those magnet pieces on behind your player shield so nobody knows what you're placing where is a good feeling. And the game looks really cool on the table with all of these colorful ships and skimmers and fortresses and markets out there on the board. Very clean, like visual graphic design as well. I really like it. Like Fractured Sky quite a bit. Okay, those are probably my favorite. How many was that? 7 board games that I've played this year. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 that I'm really excited about that are going to be delivering to me soon, at least before the end of the year. Next up is one that just shipped today, and it's called, again, just kind of coming back to Devere, it's called Salt and Sea. And this is kind of an even tighter, like, economic game from Devere, where you were trying to mine, I think, salt from this place called the Salt and Sea, which is a real place, I believe, on the border of California, down nearby Mexico, in order to get the most money in the game. And I haven't read the rule book, so I don't know every rule, but I'm very excited about it. You have these cards that you can use for kind of the front of the card that will let you do some actions. Then the back of the card has a dollar amount on it, and you can play the cards for that amount of money. And so you're trying to decide which of the cards you're going to spend for the money and which of the cards you're going to keep for the action on the front. And then there is a bit more going on. I really like how Devere has like low price points, but also and kind of smaller boxes, but also like a big fulfilling game that has unique and cool looking pieces. Like, look at that cool piece. It's instead of just being a meeple, it's like a square with a meeple cut out of the center of it. So it like looks really unique. And this one is for your salt drill, is like a square with a drill cut out of the center. It looks really cool. And it's just kind of, let's break the mold just a little bit, not have it just be a boring meeple. But we don't have to spend a ton. It can just still be a little piece of wood with paint on it. So I really like what they do. Their player boards are also really unique. You are putting these different drill cards down at the bottom of your board, and you can drill down and down and down deeper. And then you're using, again, I don't know every rule in the game, but you're slotting cards in these top sections on your board that have these cool notches for them. And there's kind of an economic market in the center of the table. I'm excited to play this one. I like a good economic game. This one's a bit heavier than like Smartphone Inc., which is probably the one I've played the most often that deals with like a fluctuating market. But I did just talk about Tinner's Trail, which I really enjoyed, which is more auction based, but kind of has a similar vibe in a way. This one's a little heavier even than that. This is a 3.73, but it is a very brand new game from Devere. Very excited for that one. Then a big game that I backed last year is Andromeda's Edge. This is a kind of a hybrid. It's a worker placement game mixed with engine building, mixed with some like area control and some 4X kind of sprinklings in there, where you play as a faction, and there are these like pirate raiders in the it's a sci-fi game, so out in like the universe, and you're fighting, and there's big miniatures, and you do die rolls to like determine who wins. But you also are like playing a Euro game in order to put your workers out and upgrade them and manage resources, and then build out your little I don't remember what it's called next to your board. It's like your space fleet or something. as a little engine that you get to activate every time you pull your workers back. So a lot of different things kind of squished together. It's kind of a semi-sequel to Dwellings of Eldervale, which has been one of Luke Laurie's like most well-loved games. And Luke Laurie is my favorite worker placement designer, at least currently. So I'm excited to get this one. I hope that it doesn't end up being too humongous on the table and taking too long to play. I hope that it can strike a good balance, but I am excited about it. That is Andromeda's Edge. I'm looking at a lot of pictures here, but anyways, Andromeda's Edge there. Okay, next up is kind of a dungeon crawl added to one of my very favorite games. Dice Throne is an awesome 2-player game where you kind of play Battle Yahtzee against the other person you're playing with also a deck of cards, and which makes it sound more complicated than it's not. It's really not a complex game, but it's really awesome. They started with their own characters, and now they have a partnership with Marvel, and they've done a Marvel set, and an X-Men set is about to come out. And this new set here is called Marvel Dice Throne Missions. And these are some cooperative or solo missions that you can go through with your Dice Throne characters. And I wish they had more pictures here. Maybe let me pull up the Marvel Dice Throne Missions Kickstarter. Basically, there are, I think, like 20 different scenarios in the game, and you pick one, and it has a board. And on the board will be, the board's two-sided usually, and the first side will be kind of a fight with a bunch of henchmen, and then the back side is a big fight with the boss of that scenario. And I think the shtick here is that it's supposed to be a shorter version of like a dungeon crawl than most dungeon crawls are. Dice Throne even had one called Adventures that I had at one point. I thought it was fun, but it was a little too long per scenario, in my opinion. So these are a little shorter and simpler. There's less upkeep between the like the different phases of the game. But yeah, there are, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 8, 12, 16, 20 different mission maps. And then, yeah, you fight some minions on one side, and there will be some different rules for like that scenario. And there's this crisis clock that moves around and will throw more minions out. And then you're moving around and fighting in normal Dice Throne fashion by rolling dice and trying to get your ultimate Yahtzee, kind of. And then after you defeat them, you can flip the board over and fight the boss, hopefully to complete the scenario. And I mean, 20 of them is a pretty awesome amount of content, in my opinion. And then there's also an ally deck of like ally cards that you can earn in different ways that can help you with those fights as well. I'm not the hugest Marvel fan in the world, but I do think the Marvel Dice Throne set is probably my favorite of the sets. I had all of them at one point, but I only have the Marvel Battle Box at this point. But missions I'm very excited for because I'll be able to play through them solo. So that means I'll get to play Dice Throne a little more often, which I'm very excited for. And even when Devin comes over, we can play like a mission scenario, and that'll be fun too. So very excited for that one. I think it comes out, it says August 2024 is the delivery, but I think it's been delayed a little bit, so it'll probably be like November or something. Excited for that. Next up is the hottest game in the world right now. This is Arcs from Leader Games, their newest game. I've actually played it twice on Tabletop Simulator, and it's very fun. I really, really like it. I'm super pumped for it to show up. I didn't back it on their Kickstarter when it was going. So I've ordered it from Game Nerds, and it should be here in September or October. So we're getting close, but this is an awesome, awesome game. I don't even really know how to explain it. It's kind of like a 4X space game where you're exploring, building cities and spaceports and moving around and fighting each other. But every action that you do is driven by the cards that you have in your hand and play. And it uses a system that's kind of based on trick taking, where you're much better off if you can follow the suit that is led with by the lead player, but you can, what do they call it, pivot to a different suit if you need to. You just won't get all of your actions. Very, very, very cool game. I think this is going to be one of my favorite games ever. It's going to be kind of weird to get this one and Andromeda's Edge kind of in a close relation to each other, because this one seems like the more like elegant like game design in my opinion, but the other one seems more bombastic with like traditional worker placement, traditional engine building, where this is a much more unique design. So I don't think they will overlap too much. It's just kind of the sci-fi theme. Yeah, super cool game where you get to determine, again, based on the cards you play and how you want to play them, what the scoring conditions will be for each round. So it's very player driven and tactical game where somebody, if they declare like the tycoon ambition, and there's going to be 5 points scored at the end of the round for whoever has the most fuel and materials, then you're going to start trying to steal materials and fuel from someone else, or tax cities in order to get it. And there's some really cool interaction points in this game. I've only played the base game. I have the base game and the Leaders and Lore expansion and the Blighted Reach kind of campaign 3 game, like a longer experience, all on their way. So very excited for ARCs. Very, very, very excited for ARCs. Okay, 2 more. I just ordered these ones today, actually. And I'm a little nervous about them, to be honest. These are going to be the heaviest 2 games in my collection. And I've been looking to get a game from Vital Lacerda. I think that's how you pronounce his last name. I might have said his first name wrong. Vital Lacerda, for a long time. But they are very heavy and complex games, and I worry that I won't be able to get them played as much as I want to. But I got 2 of them. I got Kanban EV, which is it is a worker placement game, kind of, but there's a ton more going on, where you're trying to get blueprints for cars, and then I don't even know everything. Let me see if I can find the main board here. This is your player board. You're also trying to get these cool speech bubble tokens, which represent like your influence in the different board meetings, because those will happen at different times, and whoever has the most of those like gets to speak first in like the meetings. And then these cars are coming off of the conveyor belt when you push them, and they're going over to like the testing line to do some laps. And yeah, it's a very Lacerda games are supposed to be very thematic in that there's a lot of like overlapping mechanisms, and he tries to pull as much like theme into the game. Like, okay, well, what do they do in an actual like I don't know, production line? And then what's the next step? Oh, they would test it next. How do I incorporate that into a game? And you need blueprints and all kinds of stuff. So I'm very excited to try it. This is supposed to be one of the easier or more simple of his games to try first. So this is probably going to be the one I try first, as far as like his big designer series. So yeah, that's Kanban EV. I am excited about it, but a little scared, to be honest. And then the next one I'm even more scared about, even though the theme is a little more exciting to me. If you can't tell, I really like space and sci-fi themes, but this is on Mars. You can see the weight there is a 4.67 out of 5, which is scary, but it looks really, really cool. The pieces are excellent. This company, Eagle Griffin Games, I think does cool stuff. Let me see if I can find a good picture of the board. That one's really blurry. But basically, you are trying to contribute to and build the best colony on Mars. So kind of taking a theme from like Terraforming Mars, but it's done very differently here. You have your own board, and let's see, this picture will probably work. And you're managing things there, like how many ready workers you have and spaceships that you can use in order to transport your people. And your workers generally are put on, well, I think you have like a lead worker that's put on one of 2 sides of the board, either in orbit the planet, and when you're in orbit you can do the actions on the left side of the board, And then if this shuttle, if you time it correctly, if the shuttle is like headed back to the other side of the board, you can like catch a ride on it kind of for free, I believe. Or you have to spend, I think, one of your own rockets as kind of like a wasted action to move from one side of the board to the other if you weren't able to time it correctly. And then you have the on Mars section, which lets you do the actions on the right side of the board, which are more along the lines of putting tiles out, which you can only build next to your little worker bot. And you have like different sub actions that you can activate with these crystals. I think the game looks really cool. I love screen printed wooden pieces. In fact, I generally prefer that to plastic like miniatures or pieces. I just really like how those look on a board. Yeah, very excited about this one, mainly for the theme, and I've watched a bit of gameplay on it, and it looks really cool, but the heaviness is scaring me a bit. I'm trying to decide who I even want to try to teach it to first, because I don't want to scare my wife off from playing games ever again, and I don't want to scare Devin off, but I'm afraid this game might even scare me off. But I need to try a Lacerda, and I got them both for a pretty solid deal. So even if I don't like them, I'll be able to sell them, I think, for maybe even a profit, but probably like about what I got them for. So anyways, that is the end of the board games that I'm most anticipating this year. Some of them came out this year, some of them definitely didn't. But you know, you're always playing a little bit of catch up. I'm not trying to be like the guy that's always playing the newest thing. I just want to play whatever speaks to me, but there are so many games coming out that I see them, I'm like, ooh, shiny thing, that looks cool. Ooh. So anyways, lots of good games here in 2024 so far, and I'm excited to play all of them and to continue to see what other games come out. Maybe there will be some surprises. Maybe Silksong will surprise me and come out this year. I don't feel like it's ever coming out, but that would be definitely my most anticipated video game if that does happen. But yeah, with that very long, actually, end segment done, that is going to do it for episode 20, this solo episode of Super Game Brothers. Thanks so much for listening and watching. Really appreciate everybody that does. Couldn't do it without you. Please check out our YouTube channels. Got Gaming Top Down, where I do board game unboxings and reviews and playthroughs and stuff. And then Super Game Brothers is this channel where we host the podcast generally and do video game stuff, and where Devin streams 5 days a week. Well, on weekdays usually. He also streams on Twitch. His streamer name is Player4, but he does stream to our Super Game Brothers YouTube channel. So that was a lot of stuff. Check us out on Patreon at patreon.com/supergamebrothers. Make sure to join our monthly giveaway. We're giving away a copy of Orichalcum or a $50 gift card. And our winner for last month was Ryan P. So I've emailed you, and I haven't heard back yet, but I'll reach out to you again. So with all of that said, thanks so much for sitting here and listening to me talk for a little over 2 hours, which is a lot of straight talking for me. I need to go lay down, get a drink of water, all the things. But yeah, until the next one, we'll see you then. Bye-bye.